some places you really shouldn't go. Oh, shit.
British Army squad is on a training mission in the islands of Scotland. They come across the ripped apart remains of SAS members with just one survivor amongst them. They are attacked by an unseen enemy, so retreat with the help of a local to a farmhouse. Upon discovering they are up against a pack of werewolves, the soldiers try to make it to sunrise in the hope of surviving on this bloody night of pure terror and laughs. Released in 2002 and directed by first-time director Neil Marshall, who then went on to direct The Descent, episodes of Game of Thrones and latest movie The Reckoning. Shot on a small budget, Neil Marshall made one of the best horror comedies ever made, and quite rightly considered one of the greatest werewolf films, to stand alongside American Werewolf in London and The Howling. So join me on this full moon and let's deliver 10 groovy facts about dog soldiers. Ow! Number 1. The movie was 6 years in the making. 1995. Neil Marshall was working on a very low budget action movie shot in Newcastle, northeast of England. It was a kind of movie where people would come in and do several different jobs to help get the movie made, whether it was making a coffee to assistant directing. Neil Marshall helped with co-writing, editing and even doing some of the action choreography. And it was this haphazard approach to making the movie that made him think he could do better. So he asked his friend producer Keith Bell would he like to make a movie with him. Marshall came up with the idea of soldiers versus werewolves, a simple but immediately effective concept. Marshall then spent 6 years writing and developing the script. He approached several UK film companies to see if they wanted to make the movie, but they turned it down for reasons such as, it's too ambitious, we don't like horror movies, we want less werewolves and non-werewolf action. Eventually, Kismet Entertainment Group, No Gay Picture Company and Victor Film Company became involved. Finally, after gestating for 6 years, it was shot in 2001 and released 2002. The rest is werewolf history. Number 2. The title nearly changed. The title Dog Soldiers, which fits this movie perfectly, has always been the title from the word go. It did though almost become known under a different nom de plume. One of the producers from the production companies told Marshall it was going to be changed to Night of the Werewolves. Neil Marshall told him he hated the title but had no choice but to accept it, as it was the production company after all funding the project. This producer did an interview with one of the showrunners of the prestigious Fright Fest Film Festival in the UK. The interviewer was told about the title change and said it was a terrible name for a movie and Dog Soldiers is much better. From then on, the title remained Dog Soldiers. It must be hard to come up with a memorable title, yet I find the simple but highly effective ones usually work the best. Titles such as Robocop, Alien and Darkman tells you a lot without telling you much, if that makes sense. Dog Soldiers is perfect. Number 3. The casting.
Fucking need a kryptonite or something.
This fantastic film gets many things right, and the casting is no exception. They were chosen so well that the whole cast got on so well and became immediate friends. It shows up on screen, which is essential for the soldiers to actually come across as a unit who would die for each other. Sean Pertwee, after a meeting with the director, was on board, although it would be 2 years later after being asked that they would start filming. Liam Cunningham, who you may recall from that show Every Man and His Dog were watching, Game of Thrones was perfectly cast as a twisted Captain Richard Ryan. Interestingly enough, there were a couple of casting choices that would raise an eyebrow. After seeing Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Neil Marshall was so impressed with Jason Statham, he asked if he could take the role of Cooper, who was eventually played by the brilliant Kevin McKidd. Statham said yes, but the film shoot took so long to get going that Marshall contacted Statham after hearing he'd been offered a role in John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars and told him, "It's a John Carpenter movie. I don't know when we'll actually be shooting Dog Soldiers, so take the John Carpenter movie. It's too good to miss out on." Statham definitely has charisma and would have been great in the role, but if he turned down the Carpenter movie, who knows where his Hollywood career would have gone to. So maybe it was for the best. Another interesting choice was the first choice to play the beloved character of Spoon.
Come on, ever go if you think you're not enough!
The role was offered to Simon Pegg, star of the Mission Impossible films, Star Trek, and of course, Shaun of the Dead. Marshall had a meeting with Pegg, which went well, but Pegg had to let him down, as his friend director Edgar Wright asked him if he'd do his first film role in Wright's upcoming comedy horror, which was of course the smash hit Shaun of the Dead. The role of course went to underrated actor Darren Morfitt. Number 4, the look of the werewolf. In every werewolf movie, the look of the werewolf is one of the most important aspects of the movie, and Dog Soldiers was no exception. Neil Marshall was adamant the werewolves be prosthetics, as he thought CGI werewolves looked incredibly turd. He's seen the ropey effects of the CGI wolves in such movies as Underworld and American Werewolf in Paris. I don't know why some studios insist on using CGI werewolves. They just look crap. Neil Marshall had a few ideas, but he was taken aback when a friend of his, who was a sound recordist, gave him a drawing of a werewolf. The drawing was stunning and featured an elegant, feminine-looking, graceful werewolf. This really stuck with Marshall, so it was used for the film. After adding the oversized heads to make them more sinister, Marshall hired dancers rather than the typical stunt performers most movies would hire. This was to give them an otherworldly feel. It didn't quite work out that way though. The dancers were hired to play all of the werewolves. These dancers had stilts attached to their legs to make them taller and more wolf-like, but the gracefulness had gone, as they were incredibly hard to walk in, especially when the performers had the oversized, heavy wolf head placed onto their shoulders, almost making them blind. Not literally of course, but they could only see through a very tiny hole in the mouth. While some of the cast found it amusing watching the werewolves stagger about like blind, airy drunks, Sean Pertwee thought differently. He said the performers, who had to stay in the suit for up to 12 hours, suffering with heat exhaustion and muscle ache, never complained, and during the shooting of one scene where his character was in bed as one looms large over him, he actually found it terrifying. Number 5. Injuries and drunkenness. With a demanding, action-orientated physical movie such as this, it's no surprise there were a few injuries on set. During shooting of the training session near the start of the movie, lead actor Kevin McKidd cracked a rib. He was in absolute agony, and as someone who's had this I can tell you it's incredibly painful. You can barely move without feeling like Mike Tyson is battering you around the ring. So early into production, Kevin McKidd carried on as he feared being replaced, but it was impossible, so he owned up, was promptly fired. Another actor was contacted, but they weren't available. In the end, Marshall decided to postpone shooting until McKidd was better, thankfully. During one of the movie's best scenes, where Sergeant Wells has an operation to put his intestines back in,
sausages,
Sean Pertwee asked Neil Marshall if he could actually get drunk for the scene, which required the character to actually be drunk. He went slightly overboard though, and was wrecked in the scene. Sergeant Wells asked Cooper to knock him out and calls him a pussy, but because the first punch wasn't hard enough, it was ad-libbed. So Kevin McKidd threw another punch, but accidentally busted Sean Pertwee's nose for real. As the shot Neil Marshall looked on, blood flew out of Sean Pertwee's nose. Sean Pertwee was so drunk he fell backward and didn't feel a thing. Bloody hell. So Sean Pertwee took method acting to another level. I've just found out that he actually pulled out his own intestines for the movie. Number 6. The location. Dog Soldiers is set in Scotland, but none of it was actually shot in Scotland, like in the moon. It was originally going to be shot in the Isle of Wight, an island off the south coast of England, but that fell through. So naturally, the film ended up shooting in Norway, Luxembourg to be exact. Wait, what? A film set in Scotland, shot in Norway? Utter madness. This happens more than you think because it's usually cheaper and there are tax incentives. Movies such as Morbius and parts of Captain America shot their New York set scenes in Manchester, northwest of England, for example, because it's actually less expensive. Luxembourg was a wet, muddy place to shoot, and they did not even have a Scottish cottage to shoot in. This is where set designer Simon Bowles comes in. He designed and built a cottage-like structure with stairs and floors using scaffolding, plaster and fake tiles. Only part of the house was built and it looked so real and atmospheric. Who would have known this was Norway?
Norway, man, I don't believe it.
The interior shots were filmed in a studio in Luxembourg and designed specifically different to give each room a sense of character. For a movie with a tight budget, it looks stunning. Number 7. The sequel. Wait, what sequel? Have I missed it? No, you haven't. Don't worry. For years, there has been talk and even official announcements of a sequel, but nothing has come of this. Let's go back a few years. 2004 to be exact. 2 years after Dog Soldiers was released, Kismet Entertainment announced an official sequel, titled Dog Soldiers Fresh Meat. Andy Armstrong, an action director who has directed scenes for movies such as I, Robot, Thor, The Amazing Spider-Man and Nightbreed, was given the job of directing. The plot revolved around a group of military men who would embrace becoming werewolves and would have a battle with returning character Cooper. It seemed to disappear off Kismet Entertainment's schedule for unknown reasons, but it did appear again 2 years later with tweaks to the plot and a different director. It was now Rob Green, who previously directed well-received horror film The Bunker. Once more, it disappeared from the schedule, quicker than Ed Sheeran's acting career after Game of Thrones. And once more in 2014, it was announced this long-delayed sequel was finally coming, with an official poster being released, and the news a prequel as well as a sequel was to be chomping its way onto the screen in the near future. But, yep, you guessed it, it never arrived. Number 8. Neil Marshall's sequel ideas. Neil Marshall had actually envisioned Dog Soldiers as a trilogy and had several interesting ideas, but the production company were not interested and pursued their own path, even as far as getting rid of Neil Marshall. One of the proposed ideas was that special ops come in and investigate and find there's plenty of werewolf DNA scattered around the wreckage. They used diabolical science to create test tube werewolves, and then in the final film the soldiers would become half man, half wolf. Marshall also toyed with the idea of having Cooper fight different supernatural creatures such as vampires, zombies and demons. For obvious reasons, the Marshall sequels were not meant to be, but in recent news it was revealed Kevin McKidd has been speaking to director Neil Marshall about a potential sequel, and Marshall is more open to it now. Regarding the lengthy, almost 20-year gap between movies, has nothing to be concerned about.
Although if you're watching this after 2021, there may have already been a sequel. Hell, there may have been a barrage of sequels, even one with werewolves in space.
Number 9. The web series. It was announced in 2011 by Kismet Entertainment that a web-based series was to be released that year, loosely based on the Little Red Riding Hood story. But
you know where this is going, don't you?
that's right, it never materialised. But they did make an official teaser trailer, which I must admit, I may have thought this was a fan movie, but it's a genuine official Dog Soldiers product. Check it out. It's nice to see the sleek, elegant werewolves back, but it does feel slightly off. The Little Red Riding Hood approach, though, is a little bit different. Number 10. The different death scenes. Two of the characters originally had different death scenes to what was seen in the eventual movie. The soldier Bruce Campbell, yep, that's the soldier's name, after Neil Marshall threw in a little homage to the beloved actor Bruce Campbell, the start of the insane and frenetic Evil Dead franchise. The character Bruce Campbell dies by being impaled on a tree, which I think is actually more fitting considering his name, as there is of course death by tree in the Evil Dead movies, but originally the soldier was going to be flung over a cliff, but it proved to be problematic to shoot, so it was changed to the death by tree moment. It's good to see them branch out and do it this way. Another death scene that was changed from the original was that of film favourite Spoon. Everybody remembers the line,
I hope I give you the shits, you fucking wimp.
it's a great moment and fits the tone of the movie so well. After this there were scenes shot according to Marshall, where we then saw Spoon ripped in half and his split body being dragged across the floor, no doubt reminiscent of a similar scene in Day of the Dead. Neil Marshall felt this was too much and would have soured the funny line spoken by Spoon if it were then followed by a long scene of Spoon being ripped apart.
I agree with Neil Marshall. I think it works much better the way it is in the movie. But for curiosity's sake, I would have loved to have seen this deleted scene. Sadly, I think some of the footage is actually lost. We may never ever see this moment. But that was 10 groovy facts about one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Funny, entertaining, it delivers on the werewolf action. The cast are superb. An all-round entertaining movie. I love it. Dog soldiers, I salute you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I used to be a werewolf, but I'm alright now!
Werewolf, 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 werewolf? He's got a furry head. You will be dead. He's got big huge claws and teeth like jaws. Werewolf, 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 werewolf. So Spoon, Spoon, you have to die. Oh look, oh look, oh look, oh look, I got yellow werewolf eyes. Werewolf, werewolf.